Hello there. Welcome to this episode of the Cosscast podcast. So, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, this will be the only one of these that you'll hear, unless you become a patron. So this is the first pilot episode of a new series I'm planning where I do a podcast once a week. A lot of people say that they really enjoy listening to my content while they build, and so I figured it'd be a really good idea to put out a whole bunch of podcasts so that people have stuff to listen to while they build on a weekly basis, essentially. But this will be a patron-exclusive podcast. But I wanted to post the first episode on YouTube so that you know what it is. One thing about this, though, so that it's easy for me to do, because podcasts are something that take a fair bit of time for me to edit, so that's why you don't get too many of them. My aim is to make this one not really need that much editing. Normally I edit out a lot of ums and ahs and pauses and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that with these, so you might hear a little bit of that in this episode, or Ben's worked on his skills and there'll be no silences. It'll be radio quality content, or not. Let's find out as I take a sip from my drink. It tastes like water, because that's what it is. Yes, so that's the plan. But you might be going, man, Ben, I can't afford Patron. That's okay. If you are only a $1 a month patron, you will have access to this. Or if you're any of the other higher tiers as well, you have access to this. So that's awesome. So you can do it on a budget. You can do it with a little bit more money if you want, but I'm not going to force you to do that sort of stuff. But if you want to listen to this on a weekly basis, that might be a route to consider. But maybe you're like, why can't you make podcasts for all of us, Ben? Why are you like this? Well, I am planning on releasing a secondary podcast, unrelated to the Barnacle Inspiration series soon. However, that'll probably only be posted like once a month. That won't be this patron-exclusive podcast, of course. This will be something else. But maybe you can stay tuned for that and see, and you'll have some awesome stuff to listen to while you build. But if not, just listen to the Barnacle Inspiration series while you build. There's like hundreds of episodes, man. You got lots to listen to. So what's this episode of the Cosscast podcast going to be about? What's it on? Well, my plan is each week I'm going to have a different topic of some kind. It could just be like, this is what I did this week. Or it could be, hey, I'm going to discuss an actual topic, or maybe some new Lego news. Like the next episode, which will actually be on Patreon right now if you're a patron, will be on the new Lego Super Mario theme and why I actually think it's super cool. It's been a bit of a controversial theme, but I actually really like it. So I'm going to have a chat about why I think it's pretty cool. So if you are interested, you can go check that out right now. But this one today is going to be about the pros and cons of illegal or non-purist building, as well as the pros and cons of building purist. So what does that mean if you don't know? Well, being a non-purist means that you like to cut, modify, paint, or buy non-Lego licensed parts. You like to put those in your mocks. You like to play and build with those. But if you're a purist, you exclusively just like to build with official Lego branded pieces and nothing else. So it's always interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of pros and cons between that. And of course, a lot of the times on the Discord server or a bunch of other places that I go, there can be some pretty heated debate about whether or not you should or shouldn't do that and all sorts of stuff. And I kind of wanted to just weigh in on the pros and cons, as well as weigh in on my thoughts on this topic. We can just sort of assess, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, as it were, and see what's up. See what, maybe I can just expand some of your thinking on which one would work for you. Or, hey, maybe, maybe you might be like, actually, no, I'm pretty strong in my opinion on being purist or being non-purist. We'll see. As I get a notification on Facebook, Ben forgot to mute his other computer. This one's not getting edited, so you're going to hear that. Or the mic didn't pick it up. Let's hope for that. Anyway, so let's talk about some of the pros and cons of illegal building or non-purist building. So using third-party pieces, cutting, painting, modifying, all that sort of stuff. First one we got today. There are no Barnacle sets anymore. We'll be talking about this in relation to Barnacle. I might sort of spill over a bit into system and stuff. See how we go. The first pro/con, there aren't any Barnacle sets coming out these days anymore. And so often a lot of people can get really inspired by brand new pieces. And so buying some third-party Lego products or investing in maybe a Shapeways 3D printed mask or modifying certain pieces could be a really good inspiration point for building stuff. Maybe you are one of those people that when new sets came out, your inspiration, your little spark inside you went, ooh, baby, I got ideas. And you're like, man, I just don't get that as much these days because we're not really getting new Barnacle pieces, new CCBS stuff, new construction stuff. It's just not happening. So maybe that sort of thing could get some of those creative juices flowing. So if you're in a mocking block, that might be a really good choice for you, to invest in some weird third-party sets, all sorts of stuff like that. Who knows? Also, by the way, you might be like, hey, Ben, why are you not showing us pictures of third-party product sets? This is a podcast, man. I'm not going to have any visuals on it. Like I said, I want to be able to really pump these episodes out once a week. And in order to do that, that's why I'm not editing the sound on this. That's why I'm not going to show any visuals on it. It's just going to be that pretty picture of my mask. It's my actual face. Ignore all the face reveals that I've done in past episodes. That's what I look like. Exactly like that. Just stare into my eyes and listen to my thoughts. Or just be building while you're doing this and just pay attention to your building and just have this playing in the background. Whatever, it's up to you. But I think that's a pretty cool thing about buying, non-purist stuff, is that it can spark a lot of inspiration. Sometimes there's some really cool pieces in that stuff, and that's enough of a spark to really get you building. So there's a pro. You can also be a lot more specific with using some non-Lego related pieces. Maybe you're like, I really specifically want to build Thanos, or I want to build this really obscure character, and he has this very distinct blade, or this very distinct axe, or this very distinct head shape or color scheme. But Lego simply doesn't produce those colors or produce pieces that can make that sort of effect. Well, maybe this is the way that you can do so. You can use those pieces, these non-Lego produced pieces, and get the colors you want, get the shapes you want, get the sizes you want, get the weapons you want, get that Thanos head in CCBS form, which I think does exist. So yeah, you can open up a few more possibilities there, and there's different avenues that you can cross that you just couldn't with Lego. Because, hey, those pieces just don't exist. So there's more pathways you can take. It's always interesting, isn't it? Taking another sip here. Water's good. Don't forget to drink water today. I know people seem to forget that sometimes, so don't forget. More pros and cons. There's far more options with color, but I kind of just said that. Apparently Ben forgot to reread his notes on this episode, and now he's just repeating himself. But yeah, there's more options with color. Sometimes you can get subtle shades, subtle differences, or, you can finally play around with trans medium light turquoise. Yeah, Lego doesn't have that color maybe. Now you can with a third-party 3D printed modified piece. Why not? And sometimes, man, people also go to town with painting. Sometimes you can get weathering or battle damage or ornate patterns and things when you paint. And that could really make a mock pop. It's like getting certain armor pieces and a mask and painting scratches across it, and suddenly you get this really cool aesthetic that you just couldn't get with Lego. Not even through using different techniques and new things you've never tried. You just straight up couldn't get that kind of weathering or damage with pieces. It's a tough thing to create. Maybe if you used a whole bunch of little system pieces and stuff, but it's real tough, man. It's real tough. So there's all sorts of unique things you can get with that, and that's pretty cool. What else is here on my list? You can also explore certain areas of canon, the Bionicle lore, the Bionicle storyline. There are a whole bunch of masks that were in the story that simply weren't made as actual Lego pieces, or characters that appeared in the Bionicle story that didn't exist as actual sets. And so using third-party pieces or cutting or modifying stuff, you can create those characters. You can create the masks that they wore. Shapeways is a brilliant place to get those 3D printed masks, to get that, to finally be able to have a mask of ultimate power or all sorts of other weird and obscure masks that just simply don't exist. So that's certainly one thing that's cool. Again, depends on what kind of mocks you want to build. If you're a bit of a lore junkie for Bionicle there, or you really want to play around with some cool new distinct masks, maybe this is a route for you that would work. Who knows? I mean, try it, Another thing. Maybe you're the kind of person that you go, you know what, man? It's been 10 years. What was the feeling of going to the store, picking up a Bionicle set, opening the canister, pouring out the pieces, and building it? It's been years. It's been so long. I've forgotten what that was like. Well, buying a non-Lego licensed set, you can get that feeling again. It'll be like you're 10 years old again. You can feel that nostalgia once again. And you kind of can't get that with Lego. Okay, maybe you could go on Bricklink and just buy a secondhand Lego set, and that way you can feel it, I guess. Maybe. But, there's an option there. You can kind of get that beautiful feeling that we just haven't had in years because, well, ain't no Bionicle sets on the shelves, is there? So, yeah, there's an option. So now let's talk about Purist Building and some of the pros of that and how that can relate to non-Purist Building. Sometimes it can be actually more of a challenge to actually figure something out. Before we were saying, there's the thing of, I really want to build this distinct axe or sword or specific part of a body, and so I'm going to use some non-official pieces to do that because it's just impossible to recreate in Lego. I tell you what, man, there's a lot of mocks I've built where I've thought that, I'm like, I don't know if this is possible, and then I get it. After lots of different iterations, lots of trial and error, and I'm like, I did it. I freaking did it, and you're super happy with it, That can be a really rewarding feeling, and that can be a really fun challenge. And I'll be honest, that's kind of a lot of the reason why I really enjoy building, is sometimes figuring out those really difficult to build things and going, yes, I did it. So that, sometimes you can kind of luck out and miss that element of mocking, But hey, sometimes there's people who say, you know what, man, as great as mocking is, I'm just not that talented with it. And, maybe from a certain point of view, that's true, but also, give yourself a little bit more time, give yourself a little bit more training, a little bit more experience, and eventually you'll grow as a builder, and those things that in the past you went, nah, that's impossible, you'll look at now and go, actually, I can do that. So, maybe it's time to revisit some stuff. You never know what you might find, never know what you might learn, or never know what you might uncover that you previously didn't know about. Who knows? Who knows? Dude, I haven't even been going for like 10 minutes. This was supposed to be 30 minutes. I'm like halfway through. Oops. Well, maybe we can talk about a few other things at the end. But yeah, sometimes it can be a bit more of a challenge. And again, I think that's a really beautiful thing with building. So maybe it's not a good idea to rob yourself of that, What other stuff? Sometimes some non-illegal Lego techniques. An illegal building technique. Sometimes this definition can be thrown around and used in the wrong way to some degree. An illegal building technique is when you put stress on a specific Lego piece. Often you won't see illegal techniques in Lego sets because it puts stress on pieces, and over time those pieces will break, or because there's stress being put on it, they have more of a likelihood of snapping or being damaged in some way. So sometimes using illegal techniques in mocks, people can kind of frown upon that because that's just not how they like to build, or they don't want to see those pieces getting stress, So that's certainly something I've noticed. Certain illegal techniques, sometimes they can be really sturdy connections, but sometimes they can actually be really brittle and really fragile. So that's also a cool thing is, building mocks that don't have illegal techniques, they can be a lot more sturdy, A lot of Lego sets are specifically designed to be playable, so that you can move around, put in poses, or knock off the shelf and they're not really going to just disintegrate into thousands of pieces. Maybe an arm or a piece or two will fall off, but that's about it, So that's always something to think about too. If you want a really sturdy mock that you can play with, that you can photograph, that you can pose, sometimes illegal techniques aren't always the way to go. Like I said, sometimes they can be super sturdy, but sometimes they're not, man, I recently built a little teaser here. I recently built a dark saber out of Lego. It's to scale, fits in my hand, and I can swoosh that thing around a little bit. I get scared to, but I actually can. Like, it's pretty well made and pretty sturdy. And there's no illegal techniques in that, and that's super strong and super sturdy. But in some of the previous iterations of it, there were. And then as I'd pick it up, it would disintegrate, and I'd be like, no, I can fix this, and it wouldn't work, and I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to need to take out this illegal technique. And then doing so not only actually improved the design of it, but it also, made it so that I could actually pick it up and use it as a prop, which was part of the intent in building it. So if you're a Star Wars fan, you can expect to see that in the near but distant future. But yeah, illegal techniques, man, they can hinder your mock sometimes. Depending, of course. What else we got here? Loved by all, as I wrote in my notes here. They can be loved by all. Like I've said before, sometimes there's a little bit of infighting or discretion or things between builders, and they say, oh, this mock has illegal techniques, or it's using a 3D printed mask, like, this would be way better if it didn't, And that's what people can think. They're allowed to think that, of course. People are always entitled to their opinion, but, if you want to build mocks that are loved by all, maybe you're the kind of person who's like, I'm going to get more followers on Instagram. My goal for this year is to get from 20 followers on Instagram to 3,000. Why not? If you wanna be an influencer, all those fancy schmancy words. You wanna build stuff that's loved by all. Maybe that's a route you can take. Is to go, okay, I'm not gonna put any non-legal things or non-purist stuff in there. You just straight up build them with the pieces you got. It's a little more likely that people are gonna like it. That being said, there's people who specifically like it when people don't do that sort of stuff and experiment with the boundaries and play outside of it and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of routes that you can take, but where will they lead you? Only experimenting with it will you find out, I suppose. But yes, if that's the destination that you're trying to achieve, that can be something to play with, for sure. Another thing, I think this is a big one, because I've certainly discovered this in the past, where I used to be a lot more heavy with using illegal techniques or cutting pieces and all that sort of stuff. If you ever take apart a mock, and in doing so, you're like, take apart the arms, take apart the torso, take apart the legs. I get to the waist on this now. That's right, I cut this piece. Yeah. What do I do with this piece now? You've taken apart the mock, the reason you cut it. How are you going to use that piece now on future stuff, Maybe that could actually be a really interesting sort of impetus for a future mock, but chances are now you're kind of stuck with this sharpied piece that you can't really use in other ways, or this cut piece, and you go, I can't really do much of this one actually, Sometimes that sort of stuff can happen, so that kind of regret that you feel later for having done it, I remember I sharpied a Evoke, just a silver Evoke, Tuckanuva mask, and it was perfect for the mock I was making at the time. I even kind of scratched it up a bit, give it a bit of damage, and then I took apart the mock later, kind of just put it in a bin, and years later I was like, oh, cool, and I went to pick up the Evoke, and it was sort of face down, so I was seeing it from behind, and I was like, oh, cool, I didn't realize I had an Evoke in here, and I lifted it up, and it was all sharpied and scratched, and I was like, right, I can't use that now, can I? And I think I ended up sort of just putting it in a bulk lot and selling it, kind of thing. But it was that. It's like, I kind of can't use this now. My views on how I want to treat my pieces, how I want to cut them, paint them, modify them, or just keep them as they are have changed. And so I go, can't really do much of this now. So it's always something to think about too. Will you eventually regret the decision you make to cut it, to paint it, to modify it? Maybe you won't, but it's definitely something to think about too. And, you'd hate to be that kind of person that goes, yeah, I'm going to Sharpie this mask. Why not? And then later down the line, you're like, oh God, this was like a $300 mask. Why did I do that? You never know. So definitely put a bit of thought into it before you do, because I'd hate for you to make a bad financial choice or end up regretting it later down the line. But, maybe you're pretty solid in the fact that you're not going to regret it. Maybe you're really good at painting and you're like, no, I'll do a good job of this. I'm okay with this. Let's do this. Or you have a really distinct, unique character and you're like, no, they need this paint job. Give it a go. You never know. Cough, cough. What other sort of stuff? Resale value, investments, of course. That sort of stuff can be really important, as you collect, as you buy, as sets become a little bit older and stop being released. Sometimes they can go up in value, sometimes they don't. It all depends on how readily available they were, how much LEGO released the set, the rarity of the pieces, the desire for it, In the past, certain Iron Man minifigures were worth, a couple dollars. And then Endgame happened, and then Iron Man minifigures are going for like $40 to $50, sometimes even $70, depending on the figure. So, it always depends on current trends, all sorts of different things. If you paint, cut, modify the pieces, you might look at it later, like I was saying before, and be like, oh no, that piece is worth so much money now. Why did I cut mine? I could have sold it and paid for my college fund. What have I done? All sorts of stuff like that. So it's always something to remember too, And also that too, if you have more of a purist style collection, if eventually you're like, hey, I'm good with LEGO, I'm going to sell some of it. Or you're like, you know what? No, I still love LEGO, but I don't have space for all my LEGO. I need to sell some. You're going to have a harder time selling non-LEGO stuff than you are selling official LEGO stuff, I'm in a lot of buy and sell pages on Facebook where they sell and buy LEGO sets. And man, if you've got a non-official LEGO set in there, or people can see Mega Blocks or, non-official pieces, they'll instantly back out on the deal. I've done it myself, man, It's just a thing, I mean, of course, maybe you are interested in some of that stuff and you'd buy the lot and you'd be like, oh, cool, it's got some non-LEGO in there too. Awesome, I'll buy it, Maybe that's a decision you want to go with. Maybe it's not. It's up to you, of course. That's the other thing too, a little caveat with this, of course. It all depends on you as a person. You might be like, yeah, I get your points, Cossy, but I'm okay to do that. That's fine. You're allowed to, I'm eventually going to go into my own points of view and my own thoughts on purist and non-purist building and all that sort of stuff. We'll see where we go with that, of course. But, yeah, sometimes, man, you just got to see. You just got to play with it. See where you go. But never forget that sometimes, LEGO can be worth a little bit of money, depending. Just do your research and make sure you're not going to make a mistake with modifying, painting, cutting, all that sort of stuff. Anything else on the list here that I've forgotten to say? Looks like I've said everything for the most part, for what I wrote down at least. Very nicely done. So yeah, like I said, I'll cover my thoughts on using purist, non-purist, illegal techniques, all that sort of stuff. And my thoughts on it, I'm going to answer with questions, because that's always annoying, but also really insightful. So does it make you happy if you're doing it? I think that's a really important question to ask, because it's that. You could hear from really top-end builders who are very talented, know what they're talking about, know what they're doing, consistently like win awards at conventions or get featured on prestigious websites or whatever. And you ask, hey, what if I cut this piece? And they'd be like, don't you dare. That is not the way. This is the way, you know? Who knows, right? From one person's point of view, it can be an awful thing. But from your point of view, it makes you super happy. You really enjoy doing it. And that's why you love Lego. If it makes you happy, honestly, I think do it, you know? Sometimes it makes me pretty happy to go, yeah, I'm going to cut or modify this piece, or I'm going to buy this custom minifigure because I love Nightcrawler. And Lego hasn't made a Nightcrawler minifigure as of this time. And you know what? I want to have a Nightcrawler minifigure and put it in a mock. So I'm going to go on this eBay website and buy a custom Nightcrawler minifigure. Because why not? It makes me happy, you know? Can confirm I've actually done that. So, and it did make me pretty happy. So if it makes you happy, do it, you know? But if, you know, you're like, actually, I want to build this as purist as I can. That's what makes me happy. Then I would say do that. That's what makes me happy when I do it too. I go, like I said, nowadays, the most I'll do with kind of custom, illegal sort of stuff, it tends to just be minifigures. And it tends to just be minifigures that I go, Lego's not going to make a custom version of that. Or if they are, they're not going to do it anytime soon or whatever. Or I have a specific mock in mind and it involves these characters. So I'm going to buy those characters because Lego hasn't made them, you know? Like, for example, I recently have posted a diorama with Fives and Echo from the Clone Wars. Lego hasn't made them as minifigures, but they are some of my favorite characters in Star Wars. And I was like, I want to put them in this mock. I'm going to buy some. Yes, they're not Lego, but this makes me happy. I think that's what's most important. I mean, at the end of the day, if this Lego hobby isn't making you happy, why are you doing it? Does it look good? That's the other thing, you know? Like, I would love to go and buy a mold-up mask. I really would. Or I would love to buy a soccer ball mask. I really would. He makes some incredible stuff. Both of them do incredible, incredible work. But some mullet masks, some soccer ball masks, I'm like, I don't really want that one. That doesn't do much for me. But then there's some where they put like, just incredible paint jobs, a really unique color scheme on it or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, if I had that, I could do so much. And then I remember the shipping from America to Australia and I don't buy it. But, you know, if it looks good, maybe it's worth doing, you know? Sometimes I can see people who post on the Discord server and all sorts of other different places, or they submit stuff and they go, oh, sorry, I used some illegal techniques, or I modified this piece, or I cut it or whatever, sorry. And it's like, no need to apologize. It looks really, really good, you know? Would I have done that on my mock? No, but I think on your mock here, it looks really good. You know, all that, you buy a bulk lot and you find a cursed lime joint and it's broken. And you're like, man, this is broken. What am I going to do with this? But there's certain elements of it that still work. You put an axle in it and you attach it to the mock and you're like, hey, I actually managed to incorporate this. Awesome, go me, you know? And someone could go, you have to remove it. It's a broken piece. Why? If it works, if you used that piece instead of just throwing it out, props to you. That's really impressive and really cool. Good job, you know? Why not? Why not? You know? So if it looks good, that's another way of approaching it that I personally think is really wise, you know? I always think, you know, as the great Obi-Wan Kenobi said, only a Sith deals in absolutes. I don't think that you need to be too absolute with it. That no, you cannot use a non-purist piece in a mock. It will look bad. Who says? You know, I think sometimes they can look really good. Of course, there's always, you know, variations on laws, and there's always times where I'll say, I think this always looks good. And then you look at it and you're like, that's an example where it doesn't look good, you know. But there's always a counter to every argument. So I always like to think about it first. I don't like to necessarily deal in that absolute in that sense, you know. But hey, if you do, that's okay. I'm not here to judge you. You're allowed to do what you want. I really want to make that clear as well. Like, this whole talk is not about, like, purist is the only way to build, and if you're not doing it, why are you here? No. This podcast is about being like, hey, let's consider both options and have a think about whether or not we want to play with the other one. See what it's like, you know? Who knows? The other really important question of my opinion on whether or not you should be purist or non-purist, are you having fun? Because like I said before, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it, you know? If you're having fun, you're absolutely over the moon, cutting your pieces, spray painting your pieces, cutting them, painting them, modifying them. Go you know? If you're having fun, heck yeah, you know? As long as no one's getting hurt, as long as you're not stealing, you know, as long as you're not breaking the law, even though they're illegal techniques, as long as you're not breaking the actual human law and not some weird mocking law. Why is it called illegal? Like, who gave it that name? Was it the guy, Jamie Bernard, what's his name? The guy who released that document on illegal techniques. I think he's the guy on Lego Masters in the US. I don't know. I don't watch Lego Masters. But him, maybe he called it illegal techniques. Who did that? Because I see people who like have never heard the term before, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is an illegal technique," and they're like, "Oh, I'm coming to get arrested." And it's like, yeah, well, yeah, that's funny. It is funny. I'll give you that. But you know, like, yeah, it's that. It's like you're allowed to. You know, are you having fun? Good. Is no one getting hurt? Great. Even better. You know. So if you're having fun, do it. That's what I say. The other thing that I think is important to remember here is, did you give it a go? Because you might be sitting here, Ben, and saying to me, Ben, you might be sitting here going, Ben, I get what you're saying. I get it. But I refuse to cut pieces. I refuse to do it. No, no, no. Fair enough. I'm not going to force you to. But have you given it a go? Maybe you'll do it. Build something with it and be like, oh my God, what have I been missing out on? This is so good, you know? And maybe you don't start off with cutting pieces. That might be a bit more of a drastic change. But maybe you go on eBay. You look at some awesome eBay stores like Online Salion or Engineero or all sorts of other places and go, or you go to Shapeways for a Bionicle mask. Those eBay stores were for custom minifigures, by the way. You maybe go there and you go, ooh, that's really nice. Normally I don't buy 3D printed masks though. All right, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to give it a go. And then you give it a go, you buy it, you put it on a mock and you go, well, I was right. I don't like that and I'm going to just stick to Purist stuff. And good job. You at least sort of had to think about it, you know? You at least sort of saw, was it a good idea? Or you buy it, you put it on the mark, and you go, this is going to suck. And then you do it, and you're like, oh my. This was actually really worth it. This was really good. I'm glad I did this, you know? Give it a go. Because you never know. Maybe, it might actually be worth trying. And you might actually realize it's really fun, and it's a new way of approaching things. You never know. You never know until you try it. Until you try it, of course. So try it. Give it a go. See what it's like. Don't try it. And don't knock it until you try it. I messed up my analogy there. That famous saying. But you got what I meant in the end. So that's actually it for my notes on that. Like I said, I was going to aim for this to be closer to 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes sort of thing. But I also think that's kind of how these are just going to go. Is I'm going to sit in front of the mic. I'm going to talk. The only editing I might do is if I accidentally peak a little bit with my audio, which I was noticing as I was recording, so I'll fix some of that. But otherwise, I'm going to keep the editing to this fairly minimum so that I can bring a lot of these out in future. But by all means, if you're interested in hearing more of these, like I said, the Mario one will be out right now on Patreon, as will this, of course, because you're listening to it. But you can give it a look there if you, of course, are willing to become a $1 or more patron on Patreon. You don't have to. Again, I do not want to force that. I do not want to say, you know, this is pay to win now. No. And I'll be honest, maybe sometimes I'll record some of these once a week and I'll be like, that was a really good talk. Screw it, I'm going to release this on YouTube. You know, maybe every so often you might get one of these. But it's the thing, if you want consistent weekly content of me talking, or you want to go to Patreon and you want to see some other behind-the-scenes things that I'll post, you want to more actively engage with me, I will be... I'm actually revamping my Patreon as we speak. There's new rewards there, new stuff, and I will be making an even stronger effort to daily, weekly, maybe even twice a day, you know, log on, all that sort of thing, and actively engage there. There's also like the private Discord server where you'll be able to more, talk to me on a more easy, regular basis sort of thing. So there's a lot of awesome benefits you can gain from Patreon if you're interested. Again, I don't want to force this down you. I don't want to be some, money hungry, whatever. It's not about that. A lot of this money is actually just going back into the channel, in all honesty. That is what it is. It's me getting more, microphones, me investing in a camera and stuff, because man, I would love that, to be able to make more content on the channel. It's all for that. It's not for me to be like, and now I'm going to buy more Lego with it. No. It's not how it works. Don't worry. I have other ways of getting my Lego money, and that is not it. So, if of course you're interested, you can. If not, that's okay. But more of this will be coming out soon. And yeah, like I was saying before, I am planning a sort of secondary podcast, which I'll talk about more in the future, so you can stay tuned for that, of course. And you can expect more BIS podcasts as well. Like I said before, those are a little bit more difficult to do just because they take a fair bit of time, Because it's the thing, a typical BIS episode takes maybe like an hour and 30 minutes to, about that to record in totality. Whereas, and BIS episodes are like 20 to 30 minutes. Then you do a podcast, which is an hour to 2 hours. Of course, the workflow doubles or triples with that, So it just takes more time to record, man. And, despite COVID-19, Ben Cossy's still really busy with online uni work now. So, I'm not exactly, sitting here having nothing to do. I got a lot to do at the moment, but that's the only reason you're not seeing a bunch of podcasts, because I love recording podcasts. I really do, but just they're a very intensive recording process. And so, like I was saying with this is going to take me like 40 minutes to record. It's not going to be that difficult, which is awesome. Really, really awesome. Like, that's such a blessing. That's awesome. So, I do aim to do a few more of these that'll be for patrons and not for patrons. So stay tuned. You're going to get more content from me. Isn't that exciting? So, of course, check the links in the description to my social media if you're interested. You can find links to Patreon there. You can find links to all my other social media as well, including Instagram, Flickr, Facebook, all sorts of different places. You can see the Discord server, the Facebook group, my Twitter, all sorts of places you can reach out to me, have a chat if you want. Send me things that you're working on. Always happy to see that sort of stuff. Additionally, as well, if you want to play D&D with me, you can. There's links in the description for that as well. I'm also a part of a service called Flame Tongue Fables. In these times, maybe you're like, Ben, that would be cool. We could play D&D together. That sounds like fun. Well, it is a paid service that myself and one of my friends, we run with a few other people as well. You can reach out there if you're interested, of course. And it's pretty cheap too, don't worry. Anyway, enough of all that jazz. That's the end of the episode. Why not? Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully as you were listening, you were building something too, and you're like, oh yeah, I made some pretty cool progress on this mock. If you are, awesome. I hope you are. Or maybe you're sorting. Or maybe you're just doing some work. Or maybe you're cleaning the house. Whatever. I wonder what you were doing when you were listening to this podcast. I'd love to hear. Let me know. Let me know. But that's it for this episode of the Cosscast podcast. Or I've changed the name of it since then, because I kind of sort of like that name, but I also don't. If you have name suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them, but I think I might keep it. We'll see. We'll see. Well, you'll see when this episode comes out, because it'll be titled something different. But regardless, that has been a talk on purist versus non-purist / illegal techniques, all that sort of stuff, and taking a look at the pros and cons of that. Hopefully you enjoyed. Happy building. Bye for now.